Okay, yeah, I've got some sound here, so I'll go ahead and get started. And this is part two of last Thursday night. As I promised you, we'll chunk things like this. We'll do 75 minutes. So we'll go till 6 to 7:30, maybe 8 o'clock, and then I'll provide the remainder of the time. And once I have this posted, my expectation is that you will come over and take a look. And you really should, because it's class time. I've just made this the virtual part of your class, running in hybrid fashion. Now, on Thursday the 13th, last week on Thursday the 13th, we covered XLS 4 and 5, and we talked about the techniques there that we were working with, and we were working with a pro forma, a template, and now and we were doing some work with the balance sheet and with the balance sheet and the income statements. So now we're going to move into a little bit different territory, and all of these resources again that I told you were available for you, okay, as well as the point distribution for the course, where to find stuff, resources, etc. Now, next Thursday night, you're going by next Thursday night, you'll have exam 1, part 1. It's due, and exam 1, part 2. Now, I have an exam 1. I have a sample over here for you of exam 1, part 1, and you'll want to take a look at it for sure. And it's there for you to see, and it's just basically, it will show you the kinds of questions that you're going to run into. So this should help you in terms of what you'll be studying and looking at. So make sure that you take a look at it. Now, over here, and here in the module, we'll be starting module 4. I have resources for quizzes and exams. There's an XLS sheet, and I'll just open this up for a minute, and this will tell you that for what was for the financial ratios quiz, what we're being used now here on exam 1, part 1. I have several of these which are PowerPoints, documents I had posted. And here's where you'll find them. You're either going to find them in the files section of Canvas or in the files at the BISS 1123 supplemental website. And we talked about that before. And so let me take you back up into the announcements area. Let's go up there. Let's see, it should be maybe here in the home. I'm sorry, I was getting myself mixed up. I have it in the modules section, in the welcome. Now, if you come up to the modules and you come to the welcome part, you're going to see all of these resources. And here is the link to the supplemental website, which has most of the materials that you're going to be needing to use for exam 1, part 1. That's the objective part, the test part. And I've given you a sample over there to take a look at. Now, let's come down now for a moment, and let's talk about exam 1, part 2, which is the hands-on part. Each time I give you an exam, it's going to be, I'm going to have a part 1, which is objective questions. And then I'm going to have a part 2 where I ask you to do a hands-on, do what I call a hands-on assignment. I'm going to ask you to do some things, calculate some figures, stuff like that. And this is why it's important for you to be logging in and looking at these at the screencasts, as well as being in class. And that is either having your body in the room with me, Or if you cannot do that and you've given me ample notice, beaming in via Canvas. So if you're just taking quizzes, all right, and you think you can cherry pick your way through, trust me, you're not going to, because there are significant point totals attached to these hands-on exercises, and you're also going to run into them you're also going to run into them during these types of things during the finals. So that's why I do these as workshops, so you can learn and study and be prepared. Well, let's look at this, and here are the instructions for exam 1, part 2. This is the hands-on part, all right? And this will render up pretty fast, so I don't see any big deal. First of all, you're going to use the file for the XLS Badger Jams. That's from case 6, back in an old text called the Solve It IT text. And you're going to, of course, then you'll go and you'll find Badger Jams, okay? That case, the file is in there. And in fact, we're going to look at it tonight. And then I'm going to ask you to assume the following changes from the base figures provided in the case. And for example, the rent will change, advertising, and I would believe that you know how to take a figure and add 5.3% to it, or take 6.8% from it. So you'll need to look at those items and change them. Okay. Then I'm going to ask you to compute the selling price to keep the break-even units at 1,147 units sold. And I want you to document your work. You're going to upload that file, and you can take that case file from 6 and do that. But you need to make sure that you have the new selling price required, because once these variables right here are changed, then the selling price required to reach break even it will be tough to get to. Now, just to help you out and just to help you out a little bit, I'm going to go over here to the modules now. Okay, and I ask you to upload XLS6 over here. So let's go, and before I do that, I've got some resources for these cases, all right, and where to find them. But let's look up here, and I'll just go through this. Now, you're going to find plenty of information out there about break-even analysis. And I'm going to come up, and before I do this, I'm going to come up to my vital source text, all right? And over in chapter 18, this XLS6, this case refers to figures 18.1 and 18.2, and they have you use the goal seek, and they give you for a given price, over here, right here, figure 1, for a given price, how many glasses of lemonade does a lemonade store need to sell per year to break even? Okay, and then on figure 18.2, they show you how to use the goal seek to accomplish that mission. All right. So we're going to look first of all at Badger Jams, which is an example, but you're also going to be using it. So I'm going to go back over here into the module, and I'm going to go over to the files. And I'm going to scroll down here, and I'll find Badger Jams. And here it is. This is Badger Jams. And I'm going to go ahead and make this visible. Okay. And let's open that. And then I'm going to download it. And you're going to see that we're going to do some work with it, and we're going to learn a little bit about break even. I'm going to diminish this all down, and I'm going to take this Badger Jams file, and I'm going to put it on the desktop. All right. And I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to save it on my desktop. So I'm going to take this file and turn it from and change it from what we would call a temporary file when we're just looking at to a true file that we can edit and work with. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to save it as and on my desktop, my computer, and I'm going to call it Badger Jams key. Just whatever its name, and we'll save it, and we'll replace it. Yeah. Okay. Now let's talk about this. And first of all, in chapter 18, I'm going to diminish this down for just a moment, and we'll go back over here to the vital source text. Now remember, we're over here in chapter 18. Let me move this around here for a sec. There it is. And I'm just going to do a search for break-even analysis. And let's see what we get. All right. And we're going to see the we've got some things here we can look at. Sensitivity analysis, and they talk about break-even analysis. And here's some guidance for us. Break-even analysis, units sold, break-even analysis in general. Let's just click on 145 and 146, and let's look at this for just a moment. And here we are. Okay. And when we talk about break-even analysis, here's what we're dealing with. Okay. Break-even analysis says there is a point at which I have to sell a certain amount of product at a certain at a certain price in order to make sure that my revenues and expenses match. In other words, that I don't have more expenses than revenues. All right, and they walk you through that process. And they're giving you some information on how to do that, which is one of the reasons I provide you the example, is because I can cover a lot of that quite quickly. So let's open this up here for a minute. All right, and let's talk about it. Now you'll notice I've got some assumption areas here. Okay. I have the sale price, and this is Badger Jams, and and if you want to use this one to do your work, you can use it. Okay. You will have to make some changes in order to work with it. So I'm going to pull this down just a hair. We got the sales price. Okay. And this, I can't remember, I think they sell jam or something like that. But the sale price is $39.95. And then they have the fixed costs. Okay. Now, when you study and you look at break-even analysis, the first thing you have to understand is the concept of total costs, the total cost equation. And total costs equal fixed costs plus variable costs. Fixed costs are those like rent, insurance, that they're fixed. You have to pay them. You'd pay them whether you sold one unit or none. The variable costs are the costs that change with the level of business activity. I'm going to diminish this down for just a second. I want to go back over here, and I want to go back into the module, and we're in the files area. We'll move out of there. I'm gonna go up into the module. I'm gonna go up into the modules, and I'll take you over to the supplemental website. And there it is. Sorry about that. Just scroll up here. There it is. And when you come over here, you're going to find the basic cost equations. This is really the most helpful thing. And so I'm going to download that. Okay. I'm going to open it up and let you see what it is. And here they are. Okay. And I think this is also one of the resources for your exam. The basic cost equations, the cost per unit, okay, is the fixed cost per unit plus the variable cost per unit. Fixed costs are those that we have to pay, like rent, like insurance, okay? If we've borrowed money and we have, that's a fixed cost. And then we have the variable cost. The variable cost, those are costs that change with the level of business activity. And let's say that you open up a car dealer and you have 100 cars and you have 2 salespeople and they sell those 100 cars. But then you have 50 people who come in and say, well, I came to buy a car, but you don't have any cars to sell. Now, this is a silly example, but it'll help you. At this point, you're saying, no, wait a minute. I'm going to have to hire a new salesperson in order to get those new sales. So variable costs are those that change with the level of sales. So when somebody opens up a restaurant, they've absorbed the fixed costs, sometimes also known as the sunk costs, before they ever sell a thing. Okay? So we have that cost per unit. Now the total cost equation, and I show you right here, is the cost per unit times the unit sold. That's your total cost. All right. And the total fixed cost is the fixed cost per unit times the unit sold. The total variable cost is the variable cost per unit times the unit sold. And the revenue per unit is the amount of revenue obtained from each sale that occurs. This is on a per unit basis. And then the total revenue is going to be the revenue per unit. Contribution margin. The contribution margin is important because of this. It's the revenue per unit minus the variable cost per unit, and that's why. And that tells me what I have left to pay my fixed costs. And then we come down to the break-even point in units. And the break-even point in units, okay, this is in units, is the total our total fixed cost over contribution margin. Okay? And then finally, the break-even point in dollars is the break-even point in units times the revenue per unit. And so this is one of those resources you'll want to see and you'll want to have. Now, let's diminish this back down. Let's go back to our file we're looking at, Badger Jams. Now notice they have a sales price. This is a sales price per unit. And notice the fixed costs. This Badger Jam, this person has absorbed rent. So and they have to pay the rent. It's a fixed cost. Advertising. Here they're kind of considering a fixed cost. They're just opening up. They're just starting their business. They have to engage in advertising, and they're going to spend $5,000 whether they get one sale or not. That's why we call these sunk costs as well. You got to pay that to get into the game, if you want to put it like that. And then here's a commercial stove. They're going to make other jams. And then we have cooking equipment. And so the total fixed costs is all of those. Okay, now we've got $25,700. That's our total fixed cost. Then we're going to come down to the variable cost. Now, if we sell this stuff, if we have people actually buy it, well, first of all, we've got to make it. If we put advertising out and say, order Badger jams or whatever, and people respond to the ad, we better be able to make it and get it to them real. And so the preparation and packaging is $15.60 a unit. Okay, again, these are per unit costs. And we're also looking here at shipping, $1.95. So the total variable costs are $17.55. Okay. Now, I have one other thing over here that we have the contribution margin. I want you to note this. All right. And then we have the break-even units and the break-even revenue. And then the entrepreneur's investment. Okay. Now I want to go up here for just a moment, and I want to go into, I'm going to click on formulas. All right. And there's our friend, the name manager. Now we could use the name manager and if we did, it would really just make it probably a lot easier for us. For example, okay, on sale price, I could say, all right, the sale price, and I'll give it the sale price. And again, we do that, and we get, well, we'll just do a couple of these, and we're going to click a new. And that right there, and we already have a name for it. It's called sales price. Okay, it's in B8. And it's going to define that for us. And I want to get a new one. And so I'm going to close this off, and I'm going to click total fixed costs. And see, notice how Excel is picking up that it's taking that name beside the cell. It's right now we're at cell B16, and notice that we've got Badger jams there, and it says equal, and then it puts in a single quote Badger under Badger jams, and then an exclamation mark. Okay, which means that that's within the Badger Jams worksheet, as you can see here. And so we've got B16, right? So we've got the total fixed costs. And then we'll come down here and we've got total variable costs. And I'm going to click new. And there it is, total variable costs, okay? And that shows that it's going to be B22. All right? So far, so good. Now, on the contribution margin, all right, let's click on that for a moment and notice that the contribution margin is B8 minus B22. Now let's look at that, the total variable costs. All right. And again, we have the variable costs are on a per unit basis. So what I'm going to do here is, instead of that, I'm going to use these in a formula. So I'm going to use a formula, and that's going to be sale price, okay, minus, and we'll go down here. And we can, when we're going to use the formula, we can just also click this and we'll put total variable costs. And actually this is per unit, but we're okay with that. We know that. So there we are, and boom. And we click up, and we got our 2240. Now the break-even units, let's look at this for a moment. The break-even units is B16 divided by F8. That just doesn't really mean too much to us, okay? So what we're going to do is B16, all right, is the total fixed cost divided by F8, and F8 is the contribution margin. So we're going to come over here, and instead of using just these cell references, we're going to use the names of these variables that we put here so we're using a formula. And we're going to take, to get our break-even units, we're going to take hang on a minute here, I want to make sure I don't mess myself up. We got the fixed cost divided by the sale price. All right. So I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to erase that. And I'm going to use this in the formula, and it's going to be the total fixed costs, okay, divided by the sale price. Now let's see what we got. So we should have B. Let me write this down for a minute because I want to make sure I forget myself which cell reference is which. So I've got this here. I'm going to convert this over. All right. B16. And you're also going to have to you'll find sometimes it's going to be your issue is total fixed costs, and that's going to be divided by the sale price, which is the sale price. Pardon me, it's not the sales price; it's by the contribution margin. That the F8. I'm sorry. It's total fixed cost divided by contribution margin. I could say it, think it, but messing with this. All right. So I'm going to use in a formula the total fixed costs, and I'm going to divide that by the contribution margin. Now, instead of that cell reference, I want to go ahead and put that in contribution margin. Okay, and I hadn't done that, so let's stop for just a minute. Now we'll go ahead and name that the contribution margin. We'll escape this for just a second. This is sales price minus the total variable costs. All right, and we're going to use this in a formula. Let's go ahead and go to Name Manager. And that'll be the total. Oh, there we go. Now I'll have the contribution margin in there. All right. Now I'm ready to use these. My apologies. All right. I'm going to take, and to do this, to get the break-even units, right here, I'll use them in the formula, and it'll be equal the total fixed costs divided by the contribution margin. There we go. Now let's talk. I'm going to stop for a moment And I'm sorry about fumbling around with some of these cell references and the names and all that. So I've learned I sometimes just need to have a piece of paper with me to write the thing down. Here's the deal. The total fixed cost, and you can see here as I'm fumbling around this why it's good to go and do the name manager and get that all set up. It's just in your best interest because it just makes it so much easier because you see the variables that you're dealing with. You're just not messing with cell references. Although sometimes if you're doing straight spreadsheeting, the cell references, as I've shown you, are sometimes a little bit easier. The break-even units. Now think about this for a minute, all right? The total fixed costs, that's what we have to pay, whether we sell one unit or not. The contribution margin, as we talked about, is the amount of money I have left over from a sale on a per unit basis to pay my fixed costs. In other words, it's the revenue per unit, okay, minus the variable cost per unit. All right, now we see this here, and so we're going to divide that by the contribution margin, and that tells us how many units we have to sell. Let's go back up here for the contribution margin for a moment, and let's click that. And notice that it's the sale price per unit minus the total variable costs. And that total variable cost there, that's a per unit basis. So as we mentioned, as we see, the contribution margin tells us how much have we got left to pay off the fixed costs. Those are the costs we've got to cover first. So we've got the break-even units, okay? All right. And then we can come down to the break-even revenue. And notice this is going to be F10. And as you would guess, it's going to be the sale price. Okay. And the break-even revenue is going to be the sale price. That's the F10, pardon me, that's going to be it's going to be F10, which is going to be your BE units. Okay. My goodness, my brain is dead. F10 is the break-even units, and times B8, which is the sales price. All right. So now we want to use these and use the names in the formulas. And you can see how I feel why it's as you go in and you define these, and then as you start to kind of work through the variables, you see them. Now I'm going to go ahead and back this out. So let's check this again. F10, that's our fixed costs. Pardon me, that's our break-even units. All right. And then B8 is the sale price. So that makes sense. If we want to know the break-even revenue, then we take, okay, how many units have we got to sell break-even times the sale price? And there we are. Let's use those in a formula. Okay, so I'm going to take the break-even units. Okay, and I didn't do that. Let's just define this now. Let's add that name manager. And we'll call that right now the break-even units. Boom. All right, now we got it. We'll close this out. So now we're ready. This will equal, and then we'll use in the formula, we're going to use the break-even units, or BE units, times the sale price. And there we are. Okay. Now, we've got we've got some rounding there. Okay. But we're in good shape. No, we didn't. No, we don't. Oh, no, we're good here. So we got the break-even revenue. We'll walk that on back. And we know that the break-even revenue, now let's check this again. This is before we're done. Is going to be our sale price times our break-even units. Okay. And so let's just use the names again. And this time we'll come over here to break even revenue, and we're going to use it in the formula, and it's going to be, okay, the break even units. We should have that in there. Oh, we did. Yeah, we gotta have to go back here and put the, well, we have that. Let's define the name. Yeah. Okay, now we're ready. We've got define the name. Okay, wait a minute here. Cancel it. We're going to do this. We're ready to do our calculating, and we're going to use it in a formula, and that's going to be the break-even units, okay, times the sale price. It's Sunday night, and I'm tired. I apologize. I'm fumbling through this. Here you go. Now, let's think about this for a minute. We calculated the break-even units by taking the total fixed costs. Those are the costs we have to pay. And we divide that by the contribution margin on a per unit basis. So, for example, if we had $10,000, all right, in total fixed costs, then we're going to have to sell items at a price that we can cover that, which means, for example, if our total fixed costs are $10,000 and my contribution margin per sale is $2, I've got to sell 5,000 units to cover those costs, those fixed costs. So that's why the contribution margin is such an important measure, because what this says here is that for every $39.95 I make when I sell one of these units, $22.40 of it goes to pay my fixed costs. Now, granted, this is a year zero; it's a startup budget, and I'm going to have rent and advertising every year, but that's $17,000. The other $8,700 I'm not going to have to worry about. Okay, so far so good. So we're getting a little baptism fire to help us work with a little bit on this. Now we've got the break-even units, and we're cleaning this up here, and we've got the break-even units times the sale price that gets us the revenue, and then we have an entrepreneur's investment. And let's assume that the person who's starting this company, okay, has decided that they're going to take their retirement money and they're going to live on it. And they have $64,900. So we have to take this into account too. This is what I would call the economic cost. Now let's come down here and take a look. And now we have a pro forma. We've been learning about templates and pro formas, all right, as a way to help us work through some of the spreadsheeting and the calculating. But really what we're doing here is we're building a model. Now I want to show you something for just a moment about your textbook, the Winston textbook that talks to us about all of this, okay? And if we go back over here and we go to Vital Source, this textbook, it talks about modeling, developing models, templates. And so we're working from the model for break-even analysis. Now notice what we've got going on here. Here's the pro forma, okay? And so I worked through a set of scenarios. Now since I already have the data on some of these, since I already have the data for contribution margin per unit, the break-even units, the break-even revenue, and the sale price, and the fixed costs, and the variable costs, I can just start plugging those numbers in. See, that's why the assumptions area is so important. Plus, it's so important for us to have gone ahead, okay, and taken the time to really develop the name manager. You see how much easier our calculations were. I'm not fumbling around trying to remember F10 or what is F10. I can sit here and tell you, you know, that the break-even units are fixed cost by contribution margin. I can tell you, you know, that the contribution margin is the revenue per unit minus variable costs. But when I start mixing, this is why we want to try to start to use the name manager to help us handle this kind of what we call model building, or building a template or a pro forma. Well, one of the other things that we try to do here, okay, is to work through and give everybody a sense of how outcomes could emerge. Now, most people think of decisions in terms of black and white, and they're really not. Decisions are kind of like, if you remember, if you've studied it or had any statistics or learned about it, the bell curve. Outcomes of our actions can run all the way from something really, really good to really, really bad. And typically it's somewhere in between. So we try to develop what we call a pro forma that helps us look at different scenarios or what things will look like if certain things occur. A key piece of all of this is going to be, how many units do I sell? I know that I'm going to spend $25,700 on equipment, rent, etc. That's what we call those sunk costs. I'm going to live on my savings, which is $64,900. But now, literally, the $64,900 question is, how much of this stuff am I going to sell? And I can tell you, having worked with a long time ago, worked at a university that had what we call a small business development center. One of the things we did is we'd sit down with entrepreneurs as they were wanting to start a business, and they often never truly understood that the numbers were not there. Especially it was the folks who wanted to start a small restaurant or maybe a small boutique and sell clothes or something like that, because they just weren't going to generate the volume of sales and in order to pay their rent, much less pay themselves. So that was often a painful thing, because people had the dream in their head about doing this stuff. And being an entrepreneur, and entrepreneurs are typically pretty stubborn people, and they're persistent, and they'll keep trying until they succeed. But sometimes things are just not there. And I can tell you that I had one example is of a gentleman who was there, and I was at Southeast Missouri State University in Cape Girardeau, which is down in the Boot Hill, Missouri. But we had a man who came in who wanted to get into the car wash business. And he decided he would have 3 locations. At that time, Cape Girardeau, which was where the university was located, had maybe 35,000 people. And so he wanted to have 3 car washes. As we started to dig through how much money it was cost, because now he had a heavy capital intensive business, meaning you pay a lot of money for those machines. So when you go to the car wash, a real fancy car wash, the people who who open that business are hoping and praying it doesn't rain too much, or if it rains, you'll come back and get your ticket. Well, they don't want it to rain, so they don't have to give you 2 car washes. But they hope and pray that a lot of people will pull in and take the deluxe wash, because if they don't, they're really going to be in a tough spot, because that equipment is so expensive. To make it a long story short, for him to achieve a yearly budget, which included his money for his overhead, his salary, people, all of that, he was going to have to have close to 100,000 car washes, which meant that every living human being in Cape Girardeau was going to have to bring him their car and let him wash it at least 3 times a year. Okay, I think you can understand that when we started looking at vehicle ownership in the county, and we got that data, and we got data on what it was going to cost him to buy the machinery, et cetera, they wanted, that it just wasn't going to work. Well, one day he was pretty upset and left, and I ran into him one day, and he was smiling, and he said, "Well, I showed you guys." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, I got a loan." I went down to the bank and got a loan. I said, "Oh," I thought, "Boy, this is interesting." And it was someone he knew at the bank, and they had given him the loan. And well, I don't know, I guess it was maybe another year and a half or so that I saw him, and he came and said, "I owe you an apology." And I said, "Well, why?" He said, "Because you guys were right." He said, I didn't have the volume with 3 of those places. He said, "You were right when you told me I really needed to focus on the location first, start small and go from there, because I was going to have to spend so much on the equipment." And he said, I've lost just about everything." And I said, "I'm awfully sorry." And I said, there's nothing here for me to gloat about." I said, I just wish you could have put some trust in us, and believe that we weren't trying to destroy your dream. We were trying just to help you." And so we're in a situation here where in this case in Badger Jams, the person's, they've spent $25,700 on equipment, and they're going to live on their retirement. Now, my math says that $25,700 plus $64,900 is well over $90,000. So you guys, I'll say, it actually comes up to 89. Yeah, it's $89,700 if I'm not mistaken. So they've got a lot to overcome. Well, let's look at this for just a minute. Here's the pro forma. And so here are the key variables: the units sold, how many do we sell, the revenue, okay, here's the fixed cost. And notice something about the fixed cost as I come across here on row 30. It never changes. That's why it's called the fixed cost. Now we have the variable cost. This is the cost that changes given the number of units we sell. And so we said, okay, let's just build some scenarios here, or possible outcomes. And we're going to say, okay, he didn't sell anything. You got to plan for that one. You always have to plan, hope for the best, plan for the worst. And you just have to. So there's 0 sales. There's half of break even. So if they don't make break even, they're going to have $10,068 in variable costs. And that's just the total variable cost times the number of units sold. You can see that. Now we're going to come up over here and notice the cell referencing. We're at C28 times B22. Okay, C28 is the number of units sold, and at 1/2 break even. You see, could I have gone and done the name manager for all of this? Yes, you could have, although it gets a little sketchy when you start doing some charting. So I tend to say, okay, when you're down in here, go ahead and if you've got the assumptions fixed up, then just plug the variables in. It just depends on how much work you really want to do. So you've got here the half of break even. Now, if they sell break even, okay, the variable costs are going to be $20,000. Let's say they do about 50% better, which is really good. Then the variable costs, you say, why are those costs going up? Because as I said, the variable cost is for each unit you sell, the variable cost goes up, because that's the cost that follows or mirrors sales. Because sales generate certain kinds of activities like preparation and packaging, shipping. If you don't ship any of the stuff, you don't have any variable costs. If you ship 1,721 cases or whatever it is, yeah, you got some cost. So you'll see here, twice break even. We did twice than we thought. All right. So far, so good. And you can see the cell referencing as we come across. And I'll just do this. You see, we got F28 times B22. Notice that we have kept the dollar signs. Let's look at that F28. Okay. Now I'm on row 31. I'm looking here at row 31. I'm looking at cell F31. Now notice that it is the product of F28 and B22. Notice that B22, okay, is the variable cost, and that's why there we've used the cell referencing. We've got the dollar sign in front of the B, the dollar sign in front of the 22 to make it an absolute cell reference. Then we've got F28, and notice that we've got the dollar sign in front of the row, but we don't put a dollar sign in front of the column because we're going to come across. So that's just some more of that to reinforce that idea about the spreadsheet. We'll just watch it as it goes across. See, that's E. Now the B22 doesn't change, but when I'm in column D, I'm column C, column B. All right, now I've got the total cost, and that's pretty simple. The total costs are the fixed costs plus the variable costs. All right, we've got those. And we'll just come across here. Notice again, we're using the sum function. And now we have the total cost. Now we come to figure out, do we have a profit or a loss? All right, what's the bottom line? Well, I'm going to come down here to cell B33, okay? And that's going to be B29, okay, minus B32. Now, B29 is the revenue. B32 is my total cost. And notice under the zero sales, I don't sell anything, but I spent $25,700. Now, I also have an economic profit or loss because I've also got to include not only that, but not only that fixed cost, but I've also got to figure in the entrepreneur's investment, and that's that B33. Okay, you got to figure in the profit or loss. And pardon me, it's the F14. Excuse me. F14 is the entrepreneur's investment plus the profit or loss. Now, so that we don't sell anything, all right? Now, let's say we do half as well as we thought we would. We do that, we still, if we take into account the fact that we're living off of our savings, we've got a little bit of a loss here. It's about half of what it was with no sales. And I'm still 76 grand in the hole. This is why I'm going to tell you that if you're going to go out and start a business, it takes a tremendous amount of courage. My folks were entrepreneurs, and I never really got any sense of a panic or fear or anything at all. They kept it, if they had it, they kept it well hidden. But I can tell you something, they worked very, very hard, and they understood they were taking a big risk. But when you work and draw a salary, so I'm kind of a coward. I said, nah, I'm not gonna live like that. Give me the salary, I'll work for somebody. And so let's go over here, and then we've got the at break even. Now notice that we have that our revenue and expenses match up, sort of break even, but we still have this economic profit or loss because we've still had to spend the 64,000 bucks. Now, the truth is that this break even point is such a good model, okay, or statistic or figure it really tells us a lot, because it shows us the nature of sales and costs to each other. So this is not too bad. Now they broke even. They didn't lose any money, but they did lose their savings. So they're now ready for year 2, and let's hope they can start to climb out of that. Or let's hope they had maybe a little better. They did 50% better. In this case, they did break even 50% higher. That's where we got this. Go on. As you can see, we come down and they end up with a profit of $12,850, but that doesn't begin to offset the $64,000 the entrepreneur absorbed to start the company using their savings. All right. Then finally, we have our dream thing, and that is we sell twice as much of the stuff as we think we're going to sell. Hallelujah, we're in the money. Well, kind of. Notice something interesting here. At twice break even, guess how much profit we made? $25,700. Is that a familiar figure? Yes. That's our fixed costs. So what this is telling us is something very important. We better be thinking carefully about this, all right, so that we're in a mindset of saying, hey, maybe I need to charge more. And let's hope you've got the spreadsheet out and you're looking at this before you bought the advertising and before you bought the oven, and etc. This is why we use these mathematical models to help us take what realities we could run into out there. And here, this is telling you something about the cost structure, or really your expense structure. And you have to go back up here now and say, oh, wait a minute, if I sell twice what I think I will, I'm gonna make $25,000. I have a profit of $25,700, and now I've only lost $38,000 of my savings. So this says this gives me a way to say, okay, I've got a tool that I can look into the future and say if certain conditions are happening or operable, beware. And so I'd say, well, do you have to have that much space, or can you negotiate the rent downward? Advertising, do you really have to spend that much? Because we've got $17,000 in thin air. So what do you mean? Oh, rent's thin air unless you got something in it. Well, no, you've got some stuff in it. You got $8,000 worth of equipment. Okay. Do you really need to spend? Is that $7,200 for that stove? All right. Now, if this entrepreneur has a line of credit at the bank, and this $25,700 they can borrow and they're paying a payment on it in interest, they might have a fighting chance. Okay, they just might. But they're still eventually going to come to that moment of truth where they've got to generate the revenue per unit, or the contribution margin per unit, to carry them through. So here we've got this, and this starts to give us something to think about. Again, twice break even sounds wonderful to you. See, like, whoops. Okay. Now let's go over here and say, okay, now we want to put this into a visual. We want to put this into some type of visual picture. Visualize this, or put it out there so people could see it, because we've talked a lot about that, and you had the Stephen Few textbook where we talk about show me the numbers. So we're going to use a classic here, break-even chart. Okay, that's all this is. And notice something. I have 3 variables I'm looking at: revenue, okay, total cost, and fixed cost. Now you'll notice that the fixed cost stays the same. Okay, it stays the same. And here we have the break even at $45,835. All right. And here you'll see this area right here. This is profit. Down here, this is loss. Now, I'm going to show you just a little bit about the charting on this. So I'm going to click, I'm going to click in here, and I want to go in, and we're going to look at select data. And this is how the chart's put together. Okay. Now the Legend series, all right, they have fixed costs, total cost, and revenue. The Legend is the y-axis. Okay. And you'll notice on the horizontal or the categorical axis, they have the labels, and that's the number, and that's the sales. Okay. Now we can kind of take this apart by looking at, and we'll click on fixed costs, and we'll edit. And here we have a series, and that's the Badger Jams, and that's that. And this refers to that phrase, fixed cost, that name. And then here's where we got the data, the series values. And notice it shows us Badger Jams B30 through B50, and notice it starts to give us those amounts. Okay. And then we'll take the total cost here, and we're going to click edit on it, and we'll see that it's Badger Jams, that series name, total costs. Okay. And then the values. And then the revenue. We'll click on it. And we'll go, and we'll have to cancel this guy because it's not a blank series anymore. Then we have the revenue, and then we're going to edit that. And that shows us where the revenue. And we'll cancel. And there we are. So when I want to, if I want to chart these data, all right, I can click insert, and we'll come over and we'll start to do the charting. All right, and they're going to give us some recommendations in terms of the tables. But I can come down here, and I'll do this for a moment. And I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to I would click insert chart. Okay, and I'm going to get my recommended data, and I want to select those data. Now let's see here. I don't want a table. Got recommended charts, and go over there. Well, okay. Let's just go ahead and take this. And let's see, I want to find my charting here. This, okay, yeah. Okay. I want to, let's see, I'm gonna highlight, let's see, I'm gonna highlight all of this. All right, now I'm ready to insert the chart. And I want to select my data. And so I want to insert a chart. I'll find this over here. And then some recommended charts. And they say you can do this. And they'll give us some pictures of these. And I'm going to come back over here for a moment and look at this chart and see what kind of chart it is, and change the chart type. And they use it as a line. Okay, so we're going to do it. We're going to do a line chart. So we'll grab this, and I'm going to insert a line chart. They're using a scatter here. I want to find out. Here we go. Here's a line chart. All right. And oh, that's some nice choices here. Oh, I do that? Okay. And I'm just going to call it a line chart. And I'll go, okay. And now I'm here. I'm able to begin to select my data. And I can just parse through this and work through the process. Okay. So I'm gonna delete this here. Leave this chart over here. Well, we'll play with this for just a minute. I'll select the data. And for the legend series, I'm going to remove all of those. Okay. And so I'm going to add the legend series, and I want I want revenue. Okay. That's going to say, where are you going to get that data? Right. And I'm going to move this over here for just a second. Close this off for a minute. Myself to where I can see what I've got going on here. I'll delete this thing. All right. I cut this part. All right. I'm going to get this thing down to a size where I can work with it and get it. That's a bit too small. All righty. And so I want to make sure that I've got the fixed cost, total cost, revenue. Dude, forward this real quickly here. And I'm going to grab, and in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a chart. I'm just going to start with a raw area. And I'm going to stick with a line chart. There we go. Now I've got my template. Only took me about 5 hours. I'm going to select the data. And over here, I'm going to add a legend series. And that legend series is going to be the series name will be fixed cost. So I'll just click that there. Okay. And then the series values, I'm going to come across here. And there we are. Okay. And so that starts to show up. Now, I've got and then I want to get the total cost. So I'm going to add, and I'm going to select the range, and the series name will be total cost. And then I want the series values. And I'll just follow these right through here. Now, they gave us some recommended, and I'm kind of doing this old school version. And so we've got the total costs, and now we're going to, okay. And so we've got total costs and fixed costs. And now we want to get revenue. So I'm going to click add here. Now I'll come over here and get in this little selector. I'll get the revenue, at the name, and then the values. And I'll come right across here. Okay. All right. let's just get this, the series of values, and I want to get this for revenue. And we're okay. Now, we want to get our axis labels, all right? And the axis labels, excuse me, are going to be the sales, okay? So the number of units sold, all right? So I'm going to click here and I'm going to click edit, and I'm going to get the axis label range. This will be on the horizontal, and this will be units sold, right? Okay, and then I want to edit this. All right. In fact, what I'm going to do here, instead of using that, I'm going to get the range of cells, the numbers, and then I'll come back in here and I'll just add that units. I'll add that title in. So we'll come over here. Now let's look and see what we have so far. We have our masterpieces emerging. Now, notice for this axis, right, I've got, and I can add the data points, and then I'll come down here and I can put a horizontal title, which would be the units sold, and then the vertical title, which would be the, and I can add, I do that by adding the chart elements, axes, axis titles, and all this business. So we'll just do that. Okay. And we'll do it real quickly. I'll do a axis title and the primary horizontal title, and that will be units sold. Now I'm going to, and I could, don't have to necessarily type it down there. I can do this. Isn't that nice? Now over here, I want to add a vertical title, primary vertical title, and that's going to be revenue, costs, and there you are. Now, I'll have to do a little bit of relooking again because it's been a long time since I've rotated the axis on one of these. Now, another thing I can do if I want to is I can go ahead and use some data labels, okay, on here and apply those. And I'll click this right here. And I'm going to add the data labels if I care to do that. And that'll show me the data. All right. And click on this axis. And I'll add data labels. Now you have to be careful with this because you can really get everything all gummed up. See? You have to be a little bit, you have to be a little bit cautious with it. And again, you could just go ahead and add that one figure in there if you chose to do it. I believe what I probably did was I just put a data label was just with that point. Same thing over here. So this is break even. And we know what each of these are. And then we had a Badger Jams break-even analysis. This would be again over here, and we're going to be we'll look at with the charts, okay, and we'll add in that chart element, and we're done, okay. So again, we've covered some ground here, and we've seen how we can use this. Now, I'm going to close this off for a moment, right? And I'm not going to save any changes because it's fine as it is. And we're going to go back up here now, and we're going to go back into chapter 18, right? And this is, they want us to use the goal seek. And we're going to look at this lemonade case. That's from 8, and we're going to go to 18. We'll go back to this, and we'll look at the figure 18. In fact, let's just go back up here. Boom. We're going to come to chapter 18, and we're going to learn about the goal seek command, okay? So we'll go there. And they tell us about using sensitivity analysis and using the goal seek, okay? And so here in this 18.1 and 18.2 are really kind of the text. For given price, how many glasses of lemonade does a lemonade store need to sell per year to break even? Okay. Well, let's go ahead. And I had gone in and gotten those files out of the content. Okay. Remember the Excel companion. And so I've got this cell out. All right. And we want to know, and again, let's go back over here to this. Let me diminish this down. We'll go back to the textbook. And they ask us, I'll just note this down. For a given price, all right. In fact, I think I can probably do this. No. They want to know how many glasses, they want the, how many glasses of lemonade. Yeah, they want the break-even units for lemonade, okay? And so they have in here in figure 1 we see, and then in figure 18.2 they show us the goal seek. Now I want to show you what's going on here, all right? And we'll look at this sum when we meet. Well, let's just show you. As I tell you before, just try. Now, we're going to get this lemonade, whatever this is, and we're going to compute. We're going to use the goal seek to identify the number of units, that is the break-even units. All right? So here we are. We have the data, and there's the profit. Now, I'll open this back up. Let's open it up and take a look at it. All right, here's the price. Okay, and we're going. Here's the price per unit. There's the demand. There's the unit cost, and the fixed cost, and the variable cost. And see, they've done a little work for us here. They've got a name manager. So let's click on formula. And let's go over to L name manager. And there we are. Isn't that nice? They've set all that up. The price, the profit, that's all laid out for us. So now we're good to go. Yeah, all right. Well, so we've got the price. So the fixed cost is $45,000. The revenue is $30,000. And of course, the revenue, let's click on that, is the demand times the price. And the variable cost is the unit cost times the demand. And they've figured that they have a variable cost of, looks like 45 cents. So if they sell 10, they have a unit cost of 45%. Looks like, I guess it's 45 cents. And the demand's 10,000, then the variable cost is 4,500. Follow? So this is remember this is the enterprise. This is the demand. Now they want to know how many units do we need to sell to get break even. So I'm going to click over here on, I'm going to click on data, and I'm going to come all the way over here to the what if analysis. See that over in the forecast, the what if analysis, and I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to click Go Seek. Okay. Now they've asked us how many units do we have to sell to get this to. How many units do we have to sell, right, in order to get break even? So I'm going to set the cell D7 to a value, and that value, the break even, will be 0 by changing the cell demand. That's how many units we sell, and we're doing the break even units, and let's see what happens. And here it is. The goal seek gives us this figure. The demand would need to be for 17,647. All right, let's just do this again. Okay. We'll take that and we'll say okay. And in fact, I'm just going to walk us back to where we were. Now, originally, we were selling 10,000 of these items for $3, and so we were getting a revenue. We were making 30,000 revenue. Our fixed costs were 45 grand, and the text, that's why I was referring to, like, and this is 18 to figure 18.1, figure 18.2, and there's chapter 18 in the Winston text. That's that Excel text. As you notice, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say what's the break-even units? Well, I've got, if I sold 10,000 items at $3, all right, I made $30,000. There's the revenue. Okay, now I had $45,000 in fixed costs, and I had $4,500 in variable costs. Remember, we talked about total cost equals fixed costs plus variable costs. Okay, and I've got to see, how do I sit versus all my costs? Well, here we are, and it's revenue minus the cost, variable cost, cost minus the variable cost. Now, I could also say this is, well, it's pretty simple. Let's look. We got, okay, we had $30,000 that we made. Okay? And we've got to subtract the fixed cost of $45,000. And I'm putting it in, to make that as subtracted. And then we've got the variable cost of $4,500. All right, and there we are. Now we'll do the sum. Click home. There's 19,500. They maybe could have named these a little bit better. Well, let's just do this one more time so you can see. All right, it's not that big of a deal. Click on data, okay, and then you come over to what if analysis. And notice this is, we're going to use forecast. There are three kinds of what if analysis, so I'll just talk about these. Scenario goal seek, where we change one variable in the equation. Then there is the scenario manager, where we change several, or data table, which is a lot like a multiplication table, and we'll run into one of those. We'll show you about that. All right. So they want us to know, and I'm going to click goal seek, and I want to set the cell, and it's this one here, and I want the value of 0, okay, by changing, and I need to know how many units to sell. break-even units, and that's demand. And I'll run it and see. It's going to tell me I've got to sell roughly 17,648 units. Okay? And that gets us. Now, let's do something just for kicks. And let's take it back to our original assumptions. Okay? And let's say I want to see, I'm going to use goal seek, and I'm going to set the cell D7, okay? And I want to make $10,000, okay? By changing the cell on the demand, how many units have I got to sell to make 10 grand? And I'll run it, and it'll tell me. I'm going to have to sell 21,000 units to make 10 grand. Okay? That's using the goal seek. The goal seek is a very, very good tool. Why? Because it lets me explore assumptions. All of this in this course in business problem analysis is dealing with typical business problems, and this is one of them. How much of this stuff do I have to sell? Now, we'll click OK on that, and we'll take it back to the original assumption. And you say, Dr. Harmon, can I work with the price? Absolutely. Let's click on what if analysis. And I'll click goal seek. Okay. And I want to set the cell, okay, to 0. By changing the cell, this time instead of demand, i.e. units sold, I'm going to set price. Am I charging enough to break even? Let's find out. And look at that. If I sell it at $4.95, I'm breaking even. Now, this also helps us figure out, okay, well, what would my competitors sell this for? And so to break even at a demand level of 10,000, okay, then I'm gonna have to sell it at $4.95, because my revenue, which is 49,500, minus my fixed cost, which is 45,000, leaves me $4,500 in variable costs. Now, we'll get rid of this. And you say, now I can start to look at these possible outcomes. Okay. Now, when you take management science, you're going to see we can use this basic model to do some really powerful, what we call modeling, to let us say, okay, if certain conditions exist, here's what will happen. Now, if you don't believe that this is good stuff, if you think we're just having you manipulate numbers or some boring old keystrokes or something like that, let me share something with you. Let's take the forecasts that were built using mathematical models about where Florence, this hurricane, came ashore. Now, the Atlantic coastline is there's a lot of shoreline. If you just take the states where Florence is supposed to come, just the one state where Florence was supposed to come ashore, the National Weather Service, okay, and some courageous people who got in big planes and flew in the middle of the hurricane, okay, and took data. They took these data models and they came within 2 miles of forecasting exactly where that thing would land. Why is that important? Because at that center point where it comes on shore is where all the winds are throwing, and they know the size, and they know how much rain will occur and how far of a reach it's going to have. And knowing that, they know the topography of the areas, the cities, but it's unbelievable. This is powerful stuff. Think about how do people get the space shuttle up? Well, a lot of math. Business people have at their disposal today the most powerful tools they've ever had to try to figure out what will things look like if I do this or this or this. So Goal Seek lets us get our feet in the water using that. Well, I've been on here long enough. I'm worn out. You're tired. You've probably listened to more than you want to. So I'm gonna close this off in our lemonade sand, and I will see you next week. Okay, as we've done our work. And again, let me come back over here and let's make sure that I tell you what we got going on. All right, and we're going to come down here, module 4. Don't forget now, you've got exam 1, part 1. And I give you an exam. I give you a sample exam to look at. Then exam 1, part 2, I say take Badger Jams and change some of these costs and so forth. Increments meaning increase, decrements meaning decrease, and show me what you got. Okay? All right, my friends, thank you. And I hope you're having a good weekend. God bless you. And I will see you on Thursday. This is part 2, and then I'll shut her down.